Welcome to the Backlog. This is episode 51. I'm your host, Kevin. And today we have a special guest named Jason to talk about the Viking Experience.
Thanks, Wesley. All right, so this is Kevin, everybody, and I just want to preface this episode with a little bit of a heads up. This was recorded with Jason and I about a week ago, almost a week ago, probably 6 days ago, and right after the Viking Experience had debuted, we wanted to jump on and hit the topics there, but unfortunately, I didn't want to coincide and interrupt our 50th episode with Jason and I. So without further ado, this is the recording from last week, and I'm trying to get out this episode just before Raw. Late breaking news here before this episode airs. Looks like the Viking Experience has now changed to the Viking Raiders. It'll be interesting to see how they play that one off today, but keep that in mind as you listen to this episode. We appreciate your understanding and look forward to hearing your feedback on episode number 51, the Backlog Experience.
This is the Backlog Exposed podcast with Kevin Lane and Joel Rubel, bringing you weekly discussions on gaming as well as quick insights into sports, entertainment, and anything else that they can think of.
Little bit of something.
Be sure to check out the backlogexposed.com, where you can listen to the podcast and get links to Twitter, Discord, YouTube, and Facebook.
I'm Joe.
I'm Kevin.
And we are
The Backlog
Exposed. Yeah!
Now, gear up and get ready because this backlog is about to be exposed.
Returning guest Jason Edens is here. We are going to be talking a little bit about some wrestling. Now, for those of you who follow the podcast on a regular basis, you know we primarily talk about games, and Jason is hell over high water into gaming, okay? He knows how to game. He's been gaming all of his life. But another thing that we get deep into is talking about some wrestling. And so today, we're going to dive into the most important topic on my mind in wrestling right now. And after looking at the internet, Jason, wouldn't you say, the internet's buzzing about the new experience that we've all come to know and love?
Yeah, they're getting eviscerated, especially with like their Twitter page and on Reddit.
Here's what's amazing, and to set it up, so yes, we had NXT TakeOver last week on Friday, and then followed up by WrestleMania. So we had the WrestleMania weekend, we had the Hall of Fame, some pretty big highlights along the way. I'm not going to get into all the details. If you're a wrestling fan, you're probably caught up by now on who won and who lost and things like that. But if you're a fan of the show, you'll know that my friend Todd is a WWE wrestler. And I've known him since high school, back in the day. Yeah, we did the backyard wrestling thing. Yeah, we had fun, doing all that stuff. But he pursued it. We all did it for fun. We hurt ourselves for the rest of our lives. I mean, I got a lower lumbar herniation. My brother can walk, he walks like a 90-year-old man. And it's from the time we did this, okay? And just to set that stage a little bit, how did that happen? People will laugh, oh, you were a backyard wrestler. Yeah, I mean, my brother and I are a year apart. And we used to wrestle each other when we were real young, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. We'd watch Royal Rumble, and we'd do the Royal Rumble in our basement while watching it, or I'd be Hulk Hogan and he'd be the Ultimate Warrior, or vice versa, whatever, right? And then as we got older, you'd do the same thing, but you'd really try to hurt the other person. And it'd be like, all right, now you're going to tap out. And my brother, I don't know, I wouldn't say I was too much stronger than him. Long story short, he knew I would never hurt him to the point of getting myself in trouble. But I knew he'd break my collarbone or he'd break my neck if he had to do that to make me give up. So one of the things he used to do was dig his fingers as deep as he could in the crevice of my neck and grab my collarbone with his hand, and he called it the collarbone. That was his move. And he would be willing to just rip my collarbone off my neck until I tapped out. So he always got the best of me. And one day, some friends were over when this all went down. They took out a video camera, and we were going at it, trying to make each other give up. And he got me in some neck scissor headlock thing, and I mean, my head was about to pop. and I didn't want to give up because it was on camera, but eventually I did. And, the WVF was born. It was so much fun just being stupid and silly. But the funny thing is, me and my brother were really trying to hurt each other. And all of our friends were like, we want to do that too, but we don't want to get hurt. It was like, oh, okay. Yeah. And it was just being silly and stupid. I mean, a lot of people turned to drugs and gangs and stupid things. We did that. We got a lot of people. At one point, we probably had over 75 kids from school showing up to some of our events. Their parents, their friends. I mean, we had huge events, and we were well known for doing this. It was a lot of fun. And eventually, we flew out to another state because people had heard about us, and they were friends of our friends, and we got to make a wrestling ring. I mean, it was just a lot of, we had fun with it, right? And then one day, a group called the EBW, another local group, was in town, and they had a beef with us. We worked with one of them, right? So we made this all up. And turns out Todd was part of that, right? So along comes about 6 or 7 new guys and some girls, and we had some new storylines to talk about. We had this whole thing planned out. And so when I go back and talk about how I knew Todd, it was through this whole thing that we did, right? The wrestling stuff. And my brother and I are not big. We're both 5'7", 5'8". I'm probably heavier than I should be, but it ain't all muscle and all that. But long story short, I could never aspire to be a professional wrestler. I wanted to when I was that age, 17, thinking, oh, I'm fast, I could do it. But someone like Todd, and if you've seen any of the pictures I've tweeted out or posted, he's a big dude. He's 350 pounds. He's been big dude since we've known him. He was always the big guy. And, one of his monikers, because we were kids, we all made up our own names and stuff. One of his was Road Todd, and his buddy Justin, who has also appeared on the show a couple times, he was Wise Ass, and Badass Billy Gunn and the Road Dog, right? Part of Degeneration X. And so when you look at where he is today, and I'm just trying to set the tone here, sorry for talking too much, but when you look back to where he is today, and now officially on Monday, our buddy made it to Raw. Now he's the NXT Tag Team Champions with his tag team partner, Raymond Rowe. That's his real name, so I can use it. And so Raymond Rowe and Todd have been together for a couple of years. They both headlined a tournament in Ring of Honor where they were singles wrestlers, and they were both rising superstars, Ring of Honor rising superstars. They won their respective brackets, and they fought each other. Ultimately, Todd won, and at the end of the match, rather than add insult to injury and beat him up or anything, he picked him up, they shook hands, they raised each other's arms, and the next week they debuted as a tag team called War Machine. As War Machine, they've traveled the world and won many titles. I mean, they've gone to Japan, New Japan Pro Wrestling, and I mean, some of these organizations that they were a part of were real small. Todd and Ray are both very, they give back, right? They train a lot of people. Todd himself has just, when you hear the stories of wrestling and how hard it can really be, you see these guys in the limelight on TV, but the road to get there for most of them is not easy. It's, get paid $300 a week to travel 500 miles with 6 guys in a car and wrestle in a gymnasium of 40 people. You do that for a long time. You earn the trust of these fans. You earn you learn how to do the things the right way so you're not hurting people. But as I followed Todd's career, because when, you find out, oh, he's going to Killer Kowalski's wrestling school, that's pretty neat. And then, you kind of forget about it for a little bit because we all have things to do. I had to go to college. And then you hear, oh, well, Todd got a belt at Chaotic Wrestling. Oh, that's cool. Oh, he's the champion. That's cool. And I was living in Florida, so I couldn't go see any of these matches because it was the Northeast. But my brother and some friends would go, and it was really neat to see him in the ring. It's just like, wow, it's our friend. And then as time moved on, you start realizing we're all getting older, and our bodies are starting to break down. I mean, I say it every week, but I'm nearing 40. I don't look it. I don't think. I don't look too young either. But at the same time, a lot of people are like, you're not 40. But I'm nearing 40, and my body kind of feels it. Like I said, I had the surgery and my neck and my back and everything. But this guy's been, since I had these injuries 20 years ago, this guy's been doing it. And you start thinking, man, the clock's ticking for this guy. It's got to be, right? He's a big dude. He's been doing this every day. But no, if you do it the right way and you practice and you train, sure, a lot of wrestlers go through hell, right? Their bodies get torn up. They start getting addicted to painkillers, and that's the loss you see on a lot of these wrestlers is the drugs and addiction to cover what torment they really go through. The lonely nights, the distance away from friends and family, the losing their limelight. If you're the champion one day, you're not going to be every day. It's not everyone's a Stone Cold or a Rock, and so it's just, and then you're friends with these people, they put you up against them, you take the belt from somebody, there's remorse, there's anger, there's jealousy, all sorts of things happen in these locker rooms. And so while, some people will say, oh, it's just a soap opera for men, or, oh, it's fake, there's a lot more that goes into it. There's years and years of practice and dedication. There's building a fan base. You can't just go on the corner and be like, trust me, I'm selling you lemonade, and everyone's going to line up for it. But if you're there every day for 10 years, people are going to know you're the lemonade guy, So Todd has been building this brand for 20 years. Since I left high school, he's been doing this. And he's taken it seriously to the point where he's trained some of the people as champions. Sasha Banks, I believe Kofi Kingston. He's trained or worked alongside this guy who just won the belt at WrestleMania. He has trained Tommaso Ciampa, NXT champion. Guy just underwent surgery on his neck. And many more. He's wrestled with these guys. He's been on Raw before, and he's been in pay-per-views, but as jobbers or background people or whatever. He's done it. And so now you have a guy who's worked so hard and helped others and put other people over because he's very selfless all of his life. And now he's made it. Okay, even as NXT champion, there's still that feeling, am I going to make it? Because making it is being on the big show. Making it is potentially going to WrestleMania. I think that's really the biggest thing you can do in the career of a wrestler is to headline a WrestleMania pay-per-view, as Ronda Rousey and Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair just did. And that's a huge deal. So now you have this guy's career, his entire thing, he's the NXT champion, but then you wonder, tomorrow could be your last day. If they don't like what you're doing, you're done. And on TakeOver in New York, Todd and Ray went up against Aleister Black and Ricochet, two guys who everyone knew was moving up to the main card. It's a promotion, right? When you get moved up to Raw or SmackDown, you probably get paid a little bit more or a lot more. You get some more guarantees in your contract, and you're now officially going to be accepted by the big dogs, And you're on the roster, the same roster as Hulk Hogan or Goldberg or Brock Lesnar. That's the point now. Dave Bautista starring in movies and he's in the Avengers and he's standing in the locker room with Todd. So that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about here is that, this affects so much more. And so, yes, it's a proud moment for friends of his, but to get there, he had to earn it. Some people just have it, right? The Rock will always have a spot if he wants it. He did earn it to get there, but his dad was also in the business. Todd didn't have that. Todd didn't have anybody in the business. Todd woke up one day and said, I'm going to Killer Kowalski's school. His dad brought him, and he earned it. He's been fighting ever since. And so anyways, that's a nice long intro, but I talk about him every week because it's just something that's really cool to me. And so I wanted to give that good long introduction so that people who are not familiar with the process and the dedication it takes to get there can hear a bit about it. So now, they built a brand, right? Raymond Rowe and Hanson, the war machine. And then WWE gets them, brings them over, and changes their name to the War Raiders, right? For a couple of years, they traveled the world. Everyone knew who War Machine was. And it was very disappointing that they had to change their name. They were bummed out, I'm sure, because, War Machine. It just rolled off the tongue. War Raiders. It just changes things. Doesn't sound as good. But it grew.
Yeah. We'll get to once we talk about the name change. Sorry.
Yeah. So I'm leading up to that, and I'm gonna get into that and then defer to. So all this leads up, right? They have their amazing match. They win on NXT TakeOver. They've reestablished themselves as the War Raiders. The crowd is going ape shit over these guys. Todd himself and Ray put on a phenomenal performance. Ricochet and Aleister Black, a phenomenal performance. All four of those guys. It was really one of the best matches I've seen as a tag team match Not a mixed tag, not a 6-on-6, not a ladder match, just a pure 2-on-2 match for the belts. And it was just such an awesome match. You get to see so many different variations of their styles. And Todd likes to, show off a bit because he's a lot more nimble than he looks. And so Ricochet, who's this guy who can do like standing triple flips and stuff, he's just so athletic. Todd's over here going toe-to-toe with him, doing, rolls and flips and stuff that he shouldn't be able to do. The crowd loved it. Crowd's going nuts. And that was just last week, right? The Tag Team Champions in NXT. Well, Todd isn't allowed to tell people what's going on, but I talked to him, and I'm like, here's what you need to do. You need to do this. I'm throwing him ideas all the time. I'm sure he's sick of it, but, I like to get involved and believe that some of my ideas will make it to TV one day. But no, really, I know they have a writing staff and stuff. So anyways, I just had a feeling that if I were the WWE and I'm seeing this tag team, it's the first time in a long time you have a real devastating looking tag team that's actually been a cohesive unit for such a long time. They're not just John and Tim, the tag team, or Sheamus and Cesaro. Like, it took them 2 years to get a name. This is a tag team established. They have a name. They have a brand. Everyone knows them from across the entire world, and they're beloved. They've put in the work. Not only do the fans love them, but the other wrestlers do. The legends. The people that they named themselves after as kids. Billy Gunn, Road Dogg, know them and go to bat for them. Okay? You got Mankind, you got Triple H, you got people, everybody knows him. He hangs out with DDP, and to me that's just crazy. As a kid, it would have been unfathomable to think of. But somebody I know would just be like shooting texts with DDP. And so they all of a sudden kick off Raw last night with a 6-man tag team match. And they announce it's the Superstar Shakeup, and so now you're all getting to where I'm leading up to. Superstar Shakeup, they do this every year after WrestleMania. They juggle the rosters so they can take some people from SmackDown and put them on Raw, and vice versa. Try to bolster the audiences, bolster the rosters so the audiences get something fresh and new every year. And I just, for some reason, I had a feeling this was going to be it. I don't know why he didn't allude to it, but they had such a good match, and it was the time. In my opinion, it was like, now's the time. Even though story-wise it didn't make sense, bring them over now and basically put them right in the mix and put everybody on notice. Come out and demolish the Tag Team Champions and say, we're taking your belts. That was in my mind. And Superstar Shakeup comes out. They announce the first 4... what is it? It was
4-man. I thought it was 8.
It was 8. Yeah, you're right. It was 8. Yeah. Okay. So they announced the first 3 tag teams, right? And then the 4th tag team was a surprise, and the War Raiders music hits, and everyone knows it's their music.
Well,
and
before we get to that, can we discuss something real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
Ricochet.
Oh yeah.
They turned Ricochet into a freaking joke with his entrance. Like, so they didn't have any like the laser lights. All you hear is like, choo 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 choo. It's just it was so just laughable. His entrance, I don't know. It's.
Well, he did. He had an awesome
theory of what Vince is doing. I think.
Well, I bet I know what you're gonna. I'll let you say that in a minute, but I bet I know. I was reading so much. I spent way too many hours kind of looking at all the different angles of this.
Yeah.
So without further ado, the War Raiders come out and the crowd goes nuts, right? Because it's like, holy shit, the tag team champions from the NXT are here. But the announcers and everybody act like this is completely normal. On the screen, it flashes the Viking Experience. And as they're coming down the aisle, the announcers don't say anything about the War Raiders. And they say, this is your NXT Tag Team Champions, the Viking Experience, Ivar and Erick.
Oh, God. The name.
And they couldn't even get the names right because it's Ivar. I don't know if it's Ivar or Ivar, but it's spelled Ivar.
It's Ivar.
So it's Ivar.
One of the main characters from... So they chose main character names from the show Vikings.
But isn't Ivar the Boneless the son of Ragnar, and he's brittle,
yes.
right?
He's what?
Isn't he brittle?
Brittle.
I haven't watched the later seasons. But see, that's the opposite of what Todd is. Todd's the beast. He's this big burly man who could crush everybody. And
I mean, strong name, though. I'll give him that. It is like used in the right context outside of the Viking Experience. Like it would be if he had come up as Ivar. I could see that. And I saw what was it, Mankind's point where the name changes happen and all that, but it's like this day and age, social media, like everyone, like, information spreads. Like things that stuff is more noticeable. And I did not like Road Dogg's comment. I know he's replying to someone that he said, well, come this time tomorrow, more people are going to know Viking Experience than ever would have known was the War Raiders, just because of the exposure on Raw. And I was just thinking to myself, I'm like, yeah, so more people are going to know like them under the shitty moniker than the badass one.
Well, here's one of the things though that I think. Well, there's a couple of things, but I want to dip into your point after I say what you think is happening after I say this, because what you think is happening could counterbalance what I think could happen, right? So
okay.
Many times in the past, and back in the day, I've been to many ECW shows and WWF house shows. What the crowd wants, a lot of times the crowd gets. Now that's not the same as the days of today. Roman Reigns is a great example of that, where the crowd wanted a bad guy Roman Reigns. The crowd wanted to change the storyline. The crowd wanted to be the influence that made Vince or whoever decide to move forward with something else. And usually, I mean, we've seen it change on the fly, and I've heard stories from shoot interviews and stuff where, someone's supposed to win, but the crowd is just going nuts, and Vince gives the call to change it, and the wrestlers have to go with it in the ring. And so,
yeah.
The reaction here, while isn't as immediate as the crowd going wild while they're in the ring, this is the most talked about topic in wrestling a week out from WrestleMania. And it's because most people feel that Vince McMahon himself personally made this decision. It does feel like a Vince McMahon decision, because Triple H is building NXT. And since you and I have talked about this, I've come to see what you mean about Triple H a bit. My mind has changed a bit. The more I've gotten into NXT and observed it, it's just a hell of a better product. And so now you have the NXT Tag Team Champions. I just bought a shirt a month ago from the WWE shop that says War Raiders on it. And the announcers are saying, you may know them from a different situation, but these are the Viking Experience. And the thing that people don't like is that the title doesn't roll off the tongue. It's not something you can chant. It's too long. It's more than 5 syllables. It's the names don't feel right today, because for the longest time, and both these guys have been around for just such a long time. Todd has been Hanson, some variation of that, for like 20 years. He was Handsome Johnny a long, long time ago. And that was one of his first big characters. And Hanson came from that. Handsome Johnny. And so it's just been him for so long that it felt right. Now, Vince, he's a businessman, he's getting old, but he's the kind of guy who might look at the situation and say, Hanson, like the band? Nah, that ain't gonna work. This might be the first time he's ever heard of this tag team, because a lot of people say he's out of touch. A lot of people say he doesn't even know the brands that they have, that NXT, he doesn't even pay attention to them at all, doesn't know who the champions are, doesn't know who's who there, because he doesn't think it's that big of a deal. And part of it could be that he's right.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, well, the last thing I want to say here is on the merchandising. Part of it is, I was listening to Sean Mooney's podcast, and the guy is, if you don't remember who Sean Mooney is and you're a wrestling fan, he was one of the announcers from back in the 80s and 90s, just one of the guys that was always there in WWE. He has his own podcast, Prime Time with Sean Mooney. It's on Patreon as well. You can look him up if you're interested, but he puts on some really good interviews. And he had this one interview with Pete Gas where they talked about, if you don't know who Pete Gas was or is, he is one of Shane McMahon's best friends growing up and part of the Mean Street Posse. And from what I learned in that interview was that, one, that was real, right? The Mean Street Posse was really Shane's best friends. That wasn't a joke. That wasn't, wrestlers that they knew that they just rebranded as Shane's best friends. They were really growing up. That's who they're. And Pete Gass said one of the most important things that Vince does is looks at the numbers in merchandise sales. And that's all he does. That's like, that drives almost everything. And the Attitude Era, when that came along, and you have Stone Cold, who's the bad guy, and now all of a sudden, the biggest heel on your roster is selling more shirts than any good guy. It changed his vision of what could be done forever. And just that he's so hell-bent on the merchandise, that's more important than the crowd reaction in many ways. And so the crowd could be booing Roman Reigns all they want, but guess what? Roman Reigns was selling a hell of a lot of merchandise. Still is. And so they weren't changing nothing with Roman Reigns. And there's probably some other things that, the leukemia was probably a known situation. And Roman Reigns probably doesn't want to be a heel, so he probably gets what he wants because he's selling enough merchandise. Well, I'm sure Vince is looking at the merchandise sales at NXT. I've been to NXT. The merch booths are nothing to be, they're not the best looking merch booths. When I went there, they didn't have very much variety. And again, maybe it was just the different shows I went to. But it felt like a B-level concert. And it didn't feel, when you go to a WWE event, Raw or whatever, there's merch booths everywhere, and they have everything for every wrestler that's there that night. Cups, all the stuff. At an NXT event, they're selling like 7 different types of t-shirts, and some of them, the wrestlers aren't even there. So, I'm sure he's looking at the merchandise sales and saying, this is not good, and not looking at, the talent, and not looking at the shows that they're putting on, and saying, this is worthwhile. He's looking at the merch, and I don't know Vince McMahon myself, but he just seems to be a little disconnected, and I will never say he's not a genius. The guy has put together what we know and love, and he's always willing to take risks, and he's always willing to do stuff, but this feels like a disconnection. This feels like he just doesn't understand. And one of the other things too, and then I promise, now I'm turning it over to you, Jason, but is that Rowe and Sarah Logan, they're married in real life. Sarah Logan's part of the Riot Squad, and she's been dressing a lot like the War Raiders, with the face paint, and so she changed her outfit a little bit each week, and now she's just basically a War Raider as part of the Riot Squad. Well, they're on the same show, so I'm interested to see if they bring her over and build a little stable with the Viking Experience, because, and this is the last part, one of the things is that Raymond Rowe and Sarah Logan practice the Viking lifestyle for real. In real life, they do that kind of stuff. They have Viking events, and their families go, and I don't know if it's 100% of the time, but they live the Viking lifestyle, and some form of it. They got married in a traditional Viking wedding. So Vince probably saw that and said, "Oh, they like the Viking Experience? What do you think of that name? We need some good Viking names like Erick and Ivar. There you go. Make the big one Ivar." And then you got Triple H shaking his head going, "No, Vince, these are the War Raiders. You're champions." "Oh, who watches NXT anyways? Just tell them these are your tag team champions." And that's what happened. Everyone was very uncomfortable about it. You could tell the announcers were uncomfortable about it. And then you have the fallout of wrestlers tweeting about it. And so everybody went to town for Todd and Raymond Rowe, Hanson and Rowe, or whatever you want to call them now. But everybody went to bat for him. And yes, some of them, almost everybody on the internet said we're excited, but we're disappointed in the name. We're excited, we're disappointed in the name. They deserve it, we're disappointed in the name. Fuck you, Vince, we're disappointed in the name. Names can change. People know these are gimmicks. People know that Todd is not a real Viking. They know he doesn't, travel the North Seas on a ship. He's a human, and for all it's worth, he could come out on Monday and say, "Fuck this, we're War Machine." Who knows? So we've known them to change gears before. What I hope happens is the crowd comes out and goes nuts for them, chanting War Raiders, and Vince hears it and fixes it. Or it becomes somewhat of a silly thing. They run with it, and people love it after all. And it'll probably grow on us. But I want to hear your take. I've been talking a lot more than I thought I would, and I'm sorry. But now I'm going to stop. I want to hear your take on kind of where NXT is and what you think actually is happening here, because there's more to the story, I bet.
I mean, you're probably a bit more in the know just because you talk to certain people inside, namely your friend, Ivar, whatever his name is now. Anyways, I mean, I've always kind of been under the impression that there is a sort of rivalry going on between Triple H and Vince. Like I feel like I felt this way since NXT guys have been coming up on the main roster. Like the first time I got this inclination was with God, what was this? The guy that did the dancing, and I think this is before you started watching again. He like had freaking like the dancers come out on stage with him and all that.
Oh, was it No Way Jose?
No. This is before that. Hold on. But for a while now, he's been like it just feels like he kind of just like wrote like it feels like once people get on the main roster, it's kind of a death sentence.
So, do you think it's a playful rivalry or a serious, like, I'm going to destroy what you built rivalry?
I think he's jealous to an extent because NXT, I mean, obviously by the numbers and everything, NXT does worse. You mentioned the merchandise sales and everything, all that. But I feel like...
Well, let me ask you this, because this goes into that. Do you think that it's obvious that Vince McMahon is going to die one day and give his business over to Stephanie and Triple H or Stephanie and Shane? I don't know what that dynamic is really going to look like on paper. Who's really going to own it? But Triple H has taken such a huge role from a business standpoint. You know he's technically running a lot, and we say NXT, but he has influence over the whole thing as well. They still say everywhere Vince runs the show, right? Vince is the guy behind the computer. He calls all the shots at the end of the day. But
yeah,
guy's getting old.
It's obvious that he speaks into people's like earpieces a lot, especially the announcers. I mean, there's a lot of backstage reports of that. And
yeah, they say he's got a direct line to the referee's earpiece too.
Oh yeah, that too. And it's, I mean, one of the reasons why I definitely think too he's behind, the Viking Experience name is because, I mean, he was asinine enough to actually name a pay-per-view Great Balls of Fire. I mean, like that dear God, I mean, this guy is...
Goodness gracious, Great Balls of Fire. I could see him saying it.
I don't want to say he's like senile, but I think he's kind of like, he's just...
Out of touch. I think out of touch is the right way to say it.
Out of touch, and that's kind of getting expedited and enhanced by his ego.
Yes, like when he was younger doing the stuff that we watched in the 80s and 90s, he had a mission to prove he could do it. That was still very early on, and I know that they grew fast. But when we're talking WrestleMania 10, that's only 10 years. That's an early company. Now we're talking 35, 36. 35 years, the guy's been hearing nothing but yes, sir, for 35 years. People don't question him because they get fired. The whole Donald Trump thing where, you're fired. If you recall, Donald Trump was fired by Vince McMahon. They're friends in real life, but that whole thing, they both really do that. It's a joke, but Vince McMahon has been known to fire people on a drop of a dime. And he doesn't hear no. He doesn't have I wonder if Stephanie and Shane can do it. Or Linda, but
I think I feel like, I mean, obviously I'm not backstage. I feel like my words don't really mean that much in regards to what's actually going on. All I can do is just get my analysis based on what I see and hear and everything. But I would bet Triple H, even Stephanie to some degree, garner a different type of respect than what Vince has. Probably more of because I mean, Triple H, he did kind of have a little bit of preferential treatment, but he came up wrestling, and he's taking all the bumps and everything. He is a wrestler through and through, so I think he kind of gets that kind of respect. Whereas Vince is more of a just like a titan of industry type that it's two different types of respect. One's more of a fear and one's more of a genuine respect.
Oh, 100%. 100%, yeah. I mean, if your coworker becomes your boss, but you guys did the same job, they know what you do. They know how hard it is. They know if you're bullshitting or not. But if your boss has never done that job. Not to say Vince has never done the job, but when you see Shane, one thing I do like about Shane is he's taken the bumps. He's doing the time to put on entertaining matches. I do get disappointed a little bit, not to side trail this, that he's taking the biggest show away from some of the wrestlers who may deserve it, Like, his match with The Miz was like 25 minutes, and that's 25 minutes of match that could be 2 other matches, just to get some people the opportunity. And I don't know if it really did enough.
The guy's got better cardio than probably 80% of the roster, though. Like, I mean,
he does.
He doesn't get blown up which is very respectable. I mean, I think, like, skill-wise, I think he's on par with a lot of the wrestlers.
And that's because he's always wanted to. That's the other thing Pete Gas was talking about, was Shane always, dreamed of being there, and his dad never let him, and now he's the boss, so he can. And I was actually watching something the other day. Steve Blackman, if you recall, he climbed up the Titantron, and that was one of his first big bumps. He fell like 30-something, 40 feet from the Titantron. That was like huge, but that was way back when, before he started taking these bumps. And Jesus, the guy's gone through a lot ever since. But Vince took a lot of steroids. Vince came down to the ring looking ripped, and he does a lot of silly stuff. I think he has a great sense of humor that's probably gotten the best of him as time and, just being out of touch. I don't know if he did this to be funny, to be like, the Viking Experience, or if he really honestly believes that this is a good, devastating name for such a devastating team. Because the resounding response here is these guys were dominating. They started them off slow. A couple moves here. I thought, this is just going to be a little bit of an introduction. No, they finished the match hard. They used all their main moves. They got the clean pin on the Tag Team Champions in a 6-man tag match, or 8-man tag match. That's a hell of an introduction.
It is, as far as, like, everything outside of the name, it looked fantastic. I mean, I mean, it's just small minor crap. I thought the headpieces were a little bit, like, they looked a little bit cheap, but aside from that, like,
they've been wearing those. They've been wearing those for some. They've been wearing those headpieces for some time, and actually, it turns out, one of the things I was looking at last night, a few of the wrestlers all go through the same person or people who make these by hand. So those headpieces were produced by hand by someone who also puts together like Charlotte Flair's stuff, and some of the wrestlers who wear leather, it's like handmade to tailored to them. So I'm with you on some of it, but
that stuff is cool. Like, I mean, like, as long as it's like, you can tell, like, when it's like, if you had Vikings going out like wearing like those like leather, like fake leather, it was stupid.
Well, they come out
there like wearing like genuine fur and like leather armor, like that's gonna, I think, taking a little bit extra money and time adds a lot to it.
They actually have they have a couple of different outfits that they've worn, and on their Twitter and Facebook they tweet out some pictures of like that they got professionally done, where it's like the full fur and leather armor and stuff, and they have different headdresses and different masks and stuff. But they had this one outfit, and it was like demon red colored, and it looked so awesome.
Yeah, so something like that would be best. Like, I think would be badass for them is, I don't know if you ever played the game. You ever play Hellblade?
I know what you're talking about, but I haven't played it, but I know what you're talking about.
Just try playing it, just watching YouTube, just that kind of like menacing like idea of like the Scandinavian mythology and lore. Like, if they could somehow capture that, like, that would be insane. Like, that would be badass. Like, I mean, they're already badass, but I'm saying, like, if they could capture that would be menacing. And they give them like some kind of like Norwegian name that actually like has a meaning, something that.
Couple of things that I want to point out that and I want to get your take on. And so one of the things that I've followed with Todd and Rowe is that, and I don't know if he's going to listen to this. None of this is meant to hurt their brand or anything, but they don't get a lot of mic time, right? That I've seen. So that, just like Braun Strowman, they get to say a couple of things, they yell, they say, we're going to get you, whatever, and then it's over. And if you want to go and do what Vince is doing, right, you give them the Viking Experience, you give them a moniker, and you're trying to build this brand, then they got to either put in front of them a mouthpiece that fits the bill, a la, Mr. Fuji style, like get a Viking king or somebody, a shaman or like something, someone who can really sell it and put them out there with them, someone who can speak for them and let them be the silent beast, the powers of pain type that's behind Mr. Fuji, or give them some opportunity to do it themselves and coach them along the way in case, like I said, I don't know if they need the coaching or if they really, I just haven't seen enough of it because they don't let them talk that much. But
I fear what they could do with them, and I hope they don't, is they give them the Braun Strowman's treatment because they're big guys, and I really don't want to see them take, like, I mean, in my mind, I don't know how PC your podcast is, but like in my mind, you know what Braun Strowman is? Like he is he's just like he's just a Down syndrome guy. Like he's literally like a complete moron. Like that is what he is. Like
he's ogre from Revenge of the Nerds to me.
He's an ogre, yeah, but they could have like.
Well, you remember? Did you ever see Revenge of the Nerds with Ogre? The Ogre's the big strong guy.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. So it just pissed me off what they did with him because he's another big guy who's actually pretty agile for his size. And
yeah,
they could have done so much more with him. And
he misses a lot of spots, but the problem that I think that they have is the merch sales thing, right? Because when you're not Stone Cold, right, and you're not both a good guy and a bad guy at the same time, you're not selling merch. For example, if they took New Day, right, and they made Big E and Xavier Woods bad guys, right, and turned on Kofi Kingston, no one's buying their shirts, right? But they sell a hell of a lot of shirts. They sell a hell of a lot of shirts as, the New Day. So they'll be the New Day till they die.
That's why Cena will never turn and all that.
Exactly. That's 100%. People want to jump on Cena and Roman Reigns, but no, the amount of merchandise sales dictates what they do with their character. Cena's coming out and doing this joke of a thing, but that's not going to last. He's just doing it to make a moment. Undertaker, people bought that even when he was a bad guy because of just, he didn't, it was cool, it was just a cool thing. But, a normal bad guy isn't going to sell a ton of merch. A mean, vicious bad guy might. Samoa Joe, for example, is going to sell merch because he's got he's Samoan, so he's got the whole Samoan group behind him, right? And people are going to buy that just out of the loyalty. But then he's a badass, right? He's the Stone Cold badass guy coming out and, he says what he's going to do. He does it, beats people up, took out Rey Mysterio in 8 seconds, whatever. Mm-hmm. But Baron Corbin, here's a great example. Who's buying a Baron Corbin shirt? Unless you're joking. You know what I mean? Like, nobody.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And he's trying like hell. I'm just saying, he's trying like hell to sell it. He's doing a good job, but he's just not Stone Cold. He's just not these guys. So, if the War Raiders or, the Viking Experience or whatever they want to do with them are to remain as devastating as they can be, I just think it has to be with the right people or the right opportunities. You can't just have them come out every week and wrestle and beat people up and leave and wrestle. They have to have a mouth. It's so important to be able to sell that merchandise, to have people go, oh, they're not just mean. They're not just big and mean and respectful and Vikings. They're devastating and they're funny, or they're devastating and they're badass and they have a something that I can latch on to, and something you're gonna go buy that the merchandise, and that'll make Vince happy.
I just don't want to see any comedic side. Like I don't think they should go for more the Disney side of things, and like you kind of mentioned, have a mouthpiece, get like a shaman in there, do go with the like they can get into some pretty dark, but still marketable stuff with them.
And they could even, like, think about this, and I'm talking long term, right? They're there now. So Justin and I were talking, and Justin, again, he's the one who grew up with Todd. They know each other very well, best friends for a while. And I guess somebody, like Justin's dad, asked him, so what's Todd going to do after this? Like, is he going to go off to college? Like, what's he going to do? And it's like, no, this is it. Todd has made it to a point where there is no after this. He'll either work at a gym, if say tomorrow his career was over, he's still made it far enough to where he can become a trainer forever, for the rest of his life in this industry.
Oh yeah.
But the goal here,
you never know what's going to happen with that.
Exactly. But the goal here now for Todd and Raymond Rowe is to go as far as they can, headline a WrestleMania. Who knows? They could become single stars. They could break them up, make them, feud for a while. You never know what Vince will do with these guys. But stables. I'm just a big fan of stables. I always have been. And I think with the roster size that they have today, you see now they have to compete with the women as well. So the roster size is bigger, and there's less time on the show for specific types of matches because now you have to compete with both men and women. So I'd like to start seeing some stables bring the two together so that it's not just, okay, now the men, okay, now the women. And if if they just jump on it and they say, okay, Sarah Logan, they'll probably give her Helga as a name or something and just forget that she's Sarah Logan. But she got a huge pop at WrestleMania. She almost won the Battle Royale. The crowd was very happy.
I remember.
And then they gave it. Yeah, they uselessly gave it to Carmella. It doesn't make any sense as to why they would do that. Like, Carmella's over enough, and if you understand any of the backstage stuff, supposedly, what's that guy that does the announcing with Corey Graves?
One? Corey Graves, yeah.
So I guess in real life, and I don't know, don't quote me, but I guess in real life they were banging, and Corey Graves' wife found out and was like tweeting all about it, like, "Oh, Carmella, my daughter is your favorite. You're my daughter's favorite superstar, and." I wonder what she's going to say when she finds out you're banging her dad. And, just like stuff like that. That was like just a couple of weeks ago. Same weekend as the Usos getting in a car wreck and drunk driving and all that. And now, the Usos got the belts the next night and Carmella's winning the Battle Royal. It seems like some of that stuff would have an impact on, the careers and that they would make examples. But some of these people are just they're well connected. So you have the Usos, who are part of the family. The Uso family is not really the Uso family. It's the Anai family, right? And they're the Yokozunas and the Headhunters and loosely related to The Rock through brotherhood in quotes. But all those guys, all those Fatu and Samu. That's all family. It's all half of the WWE, all of its career, all of its time has had a Samoan element to it. Even Yokozuna was not Japanese; he was a Samoan, and that's even now you have Superfly Snuka's daughter in there. He was Samoan, so you got all this. Carmella's obviously connected in some capacity. Nothing would ever happen to Charlotte Flair. Certain people could do no harm, is what I'm saying, and then other people have to tiptoe. But Sarah Logan got a huge pop. It would have been really smart, especially with knowing that they probably knew at that point they were bringing in the War Raiders. Maybe not, but maybe you make that last minute call and you say, no, Carmella is not going to make this one. Let's give it to Sarah. The crowd's going nuts. But anyways, I think it's good that she did get that pop. It's good that she got that opportunity to look like maybe it was hers. Maybe she earned it. And bringing her over, going to finish my statement here, is bringing her over and start to form a little bit of a stable and maybe let her do some speaking. I don't even know I know she's very cutesy on the outside of the ring, smiling and stuff on the Riot Squad, but I'm sure she can pull off, a Viking warrior princess. And I know people love Lagatha, so, I'd like to see that. So, yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing her and the blonde chick, or even I forget, Ruby Riott, two of them coming over and doing some of this cross gender stables, so that if this week you don't get to see the Viking Experience in action, you get to see them on TV. They still get to have a presence because Sarah Logan's wrestling. and vice versa.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to get too far into it, but yeah. My favorite time during wrestling was the Attitude Era, but big thing of that, you had the Nation of Domination, you had DX, you had all these
Heart
stables that
Foundation,
were around, you had,
Los Barricos,
Gangrel, his stable.
the Brood.
Yeah, the Brood. And
what was the clowns, the Insane Clown Posse? They had the Oddities.
Yeah, I mean, they got their asses kicked. But,
they did, but they even had jobber stables. That was what was great. The stables got more people exposure, and you could do more with the storylines. You could introduce people to other people who would never have had a reason to be in the ring together. And now it's just like Zach and John versus Timmy and Tom. It's like there's just such a low vibe.
No creativity.
Yeah, creativity's
a big
gone.
Part of that too. I mean, I got to go here in like a few minutes, but I think the big part of the creativity thing is that they hire TV writers. They don't hire wrestling writers anymore, and that's a big.
Yeah. Well, maybe if Todd ever becomes powerful enough, like if something happens and all of a sudden he's freaking Ultimate Warrior Hulk Hogan to the universe, the WWE universe, which is possible, right? I mean, seriously, I watched, and I've said this a couple times on the show, so I'm not going to get too deep into it, but I watched Al Snow go from straight up jobber to superstar in 2 nights, and I witnessed it. And all it takes is one thing. I mean, if Todd had a spot, or both of them had a spot in a match that just was unfathomable, they're just amazing. If they let him do his moonsault through 2 tables or something, and and then he got on the mic and just said something that made the crowd go nuts, he could get a push, and next thing you know, he's the Intercontinental Champion, and then, a year later, he's the World Champion, and then it's just, that's possible.
That's the thing, though, is that, like, it can happen so quickly, but it seems like nowadays in WWE, it's just, like, it can be taken away. And
oh, yeah, it could be taken away just as fast. He could be...
Yeah, exactly. It's so fast.
That's the whole point of this talk, I think, today, is to understand that what Vince has done has put them on the table, and now it's up to them, which I have no doubt that both of them can perform through whatever negativity has come out of this, and I think it's a net positive. Road Dogg was right. More people will have heard of the Viking Experience than ever before. They were in Forbes magazine today. They were on Sports Center. Everywhere today, they were talking about it. Yeah. Almost every major superstar was tweeting about it as a primary topic. And so what yesterday was the War Raiders and some people saying, oh, they're a badass tag team. Now everybody's going, oh, there was a team called the War Raiders. I've never watched NXT. Let me go check out that last match. People are saying it was awesome. And all of a sudden you have another audience of people who have never even watched wrestling. Maybe they're laughing at the posts on, some of these websites about the amusement park ride that's coming to WWE and stuff. But the reality is, their picture is everywhere. And I don't know if it was Donald Trump or somebody said it, but any exposure is good exposure. It's how you use it going forward. Even negative exposure can be used for good and can be used to make this awesome. I do fear that they could come out dancing as clowns next week, like amusement park clowns, because of the negativity and Vince being stupid, but I also expect differently. I expect them to take it way more seriously, and if they don't get their names changed back or anything like that, which I don't think it's happening, they've already gone through and updated their Instagram and Twitter accounts have been converted, so now Warbeard Hanson is Ivar WWE officially and everything, and that stuff is doesn't get changed overnight very easily. So, long story short, this is probably here to stay. I just hope that they embrace it and that the fans accept it and understand that this wasn't necessarily their choice. And even if it was their choice, they're going to ride it out. They're going to do the right thing. And it seems like they're in line for a push straight out the gate. The announcers were already saying, these guys are in the mix for the titles. I mean, to come in on day one and be told you're in the mix for the titles, and to be given such a prestigious moment to pin clean, which doesn't happen on Raw that often, pin clean the Tag Team Champions in an unofficial, non-title match or whatever, is still a big deal. Yeah. It's showing the crowd that these guys mean business, and I think long term we're going to see some awesome just some awesome stuff out of these two, and I can't wait. I'm really happy for them. They deserve it, and I wish people could get to hear him on here. I've been trying to work with him. I didn't know this was happening, so I'm sure when I was asking him about this, he was like, shit, I can't really tell him. But I want to go through the official channels so that we can get Todd on the show, so that we can have a real interview with him and Raymond Rowe to kind of go into their career, the stuff behind the scenes you don't really know about, the path, the journey, the frustrations, the enjoyments, the pain, the injuries, the camaraderie, the friendships, all of that stuff that really ties into what makes a wrestler a superstar and an athlete and not a character. So
Yeah.
hopefully we can get him on.
Yeah. I just to close it up with your closing point too. I think like I'm very, very optimistic with like the potential for what they could do with especially the whole Viking thing and the size of those guys and with their talent. Like they could really like it could be some like like I'm talking like WWE Hall of Fame. Like the potential in my mind is just insane with what they could do with that.
Oh yeah.
If they take the right themes and as long as they're not dancing and
yeah, if they pull the Rikishi gimmick on these guys, I'll be so pissed.
Yeah, and my concern is that like I like when Bray Wyatt debuted from NXT on up, like I was so excited because I'm like, there's like I thought he was like the next kind of like Mankind. Like, there's no way they're gonna screw this guy up. Like, he's got talent. But they kept managing through booking and everything to just screw him up, and then he just they lost it with him. I know they're trying to reinvent him right now.
Yeah, with the puppets and stuff. That's the problem, though, man. Vince pulls the plug. It's like when you watch a TV show. If you see a new TV show you like, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna watch it, and you get to episode 7, and then they're like, oh, it's canceled. No more episodes the rest of the season. And you're like, wait, I liked it. No, didn't get good enough ratings. That's the same thing. Vince does it in the middle of a character, and it's sad because in the internet era, we all know what's going on. And rather than blame the writers, they blame the talent. And I don't think that's fair.
Yeah. It's not fair at all, and especially like in the case of I'll just go ahead and just reference them as the Viking Experience. It sounds like that's here to stay. Like in the case of them, like they're so extremely talented, and it would be there's just so much potential there, and it would just be especially since it's somebody firsthand. Like that's just even more devastating to think how WWE could screw it up. Like it's like so it's bittersweet almost.
Yep.
It's just like I'm so glad they're up there, but at the same time, every time I watch Raw now, I'm gonna be worried to death that they're gonna sunk it.
Yeah. Well, to go on that point, I know I was talking to Justin and I asked him, hey, what's Todd's reaction here? And his response was that it's going to be fine, and he's just absolutely, unbelievably happy that they are official Raw superstars, and he's taken the good over the bad. Now, this was also right after, like an hour or two after they debuted, so it hadn't gone viral just yet. I mean, it started to, but overnight it really took its own life form by like 4 a.m. There was at least 10 threads in the top 20 on Reddit specific to this, and that's a pretty significant thing. I mean, that's where most of the fan base goes to talk nowadays. Yeah. And, and today the Experience moniker has been added to a lot of things, and people are joking because I guess they're saying that there's a huge announcement coming for SmackDown. I don't know if we're missing it right now or missed it or what it was, but people are like, oh, it's going to be the Purple Experience is coming out, and Velveteen Dream. But anyways, I think he's going to do what he's always done and take everything in stride and march forward. I want to ask him about it, but at the same time, I don't know. I don't know if this makes him sad or happy, that this is going on. This could be, from my point of view, if I were in his shoes, I would try to see the positive over any negative. And he's the one who built the brand. Him and Raymond Rowe built the brand, the War Raiders. I don't know who came up with it at the time, but they're the ones who built that. And to have it just kind of taken away. Now, again, we could be talking a year from now, a week after WrestleMania, going, can you believe that they dominated at WrestleMania, and they look so good. And can you believe that we actually are buying into this Viking Experience thing? Like, who knows? They have a pirate ship in Raymond James Stadium, and I sent out a tweet with some pictures and stuff because I made something up showing them, on the Viking ship instead of a pirate ship. And I saw some people saying Kairi Sane needs to come to WWE so that she can come out on that ship. No. I bet Vince already has a vision of using that ship and having these two on it with, loaded with 100 Vikings on that ship. I bet it's already in his mind. And because that's the way Vince thinks. Huge. He thinks big. So I bet he already has his mind made up that they're coming out on that boat. They're making their entrance from that Viking ship, and it's not going to be a pirate ship. It's going to be a Viking ship. This is hopeful. I'm dreaming here, but
that would be that would be.
But they've had some really awesome entrances in NXT. So with all their Viking, if they got 100 Vikings to, line the aisle, and that's what I'm talking about. If they make it a Viking Experience and they really go all the way, and you have 100 of these guys, just every time they come out, you put 20 or 30 on Raw and 100 on a pay-per-view, and you just make it like you don't fuck with these guys. Yeah, you don't like my name? Fine, we have 100 fucking guys with shields and swords, and you're not going to use that table and chair. We're gonna fight this one clean, because I have a guy with a sword who'll cut your fucking head off if you try to pick up that table. That's the kind of thing that they should do. And
that all sounds awesome. It's just every time it sounds awesome, I just think
I know.
Experience kills my motivation to think
what would even be?
Maybe it will grow on me. I don't know, but right now I just I like I said, I told my wife the name. I told a couple people at work that don't watch wrestling, and I'm
what about
sure
this? What about this? Okay, I know you got to go, but let me leave you with this. What if, right, they do this whole, every time they come down, they have 10 or 12 or 20 or so Vikings, and the Vikings can be undercard wrestlers dressed up for them and stuff, like actual trained people, but they're under masks. No one's ever going to be unmasked. There's no one special under there necessarily.
Yeah.
And so they come out and they do their thing. Now, Vikings were relentless. Todd and Ray have been respectful. That's one thing about they've kind of morphed into these Vikings as they came over to NXT. They weren't really called Vikings in Ring of Honor or anything. But I like it, but they've always been known as the respectful guys. They shake hands with their opponents. They, this and that. What if they started getting rough and mean and stopped and built a not necessarily evil, but the Viking way, like the Ragnar Lothbrok, take no prisoners. And so after they're done with their opponents, they give a signal, and then their 10 or 12 guys go in and just beat the ever living shit out of their dead pulps, like just insult to injury, drag their opponents away, carry them off.
They could, yeah. I would like to see more of the. I'm not trying to argue your point here. I guess both have different images. What like Viking? Because I think there's that ruthlessness, but Vikings, their big thing is they want to die in combat. Like they want. So
well, yeah.
I think them kind of going out there and having the attitude of I don't. If I go down and die in this fight, I don't care.
Dude, that's an awesome reference. Like even on a shirt, die in combat, or
if Vince would be willing to put die on a shirt, how they
well, what if their shirt said something like conquer or die trying? Yeah, conquer or die trying, or something like that. And when they conquer for real. I would love to see something like that, where they, yes, it's a respectful thing because they'll go to the death, but at the same time, they will go to the death, either you or them. And so when you're done and your lifeless body is there, then they let their other minions feast on the rest of you and carry you off, like, to burn on a fire or something. I don't know. I think it would be cool. And then that's the Viking Experience. And you want to make a joke of it. You want to laugh at the Viking Experience? Well, here's 30 people beating the shit out of you. That's the Viking Experience, bitch. And then walk away. And eventually people will realize it's more, it's meaner than it seems. But if they're good guys, if they come out and they're like, the Viking Experience, shake your hand, that won't play well. You know what I mean?
If they're dancing, or if they're just going...
Yeah, no.
But if they're just going out there in costume and being like, oh, we're big, brawny guys, in costume. Like, then with no, real...
I could just see it. did you see that knee? One of my favorite moves is when Ray grabs the guy like a hip toss, flips him over, and the guy's lands on his knees, and he does a knee thrust to the face and screams in his face afterwards. And he got to do that. I mean, that's like just one of the most. That's the type of maneuvers. They're powerful clotheslines. They're domination, and then when they lose, they'll lose like everybody else. When they do, have it be just like you said, die in that ring. Everything they've got. Keep kicking out until it's literally just there's no more life in them, so that it's an earned victory on the other side. But when they win, give them the Viking experience. I think this could turn into something if they use it right.
I don't know about the name, but I think they could keep the Viking thing. I'm really against the whole experience thing just because it sounds like a Universal Studio ride, and it just
I think the term experience, it could be the Viking prestige, the Viking honor, the Viking anything. The term experience,
Viking guard, anything.
I guess there's a thing called WWE Experience. There's a show called that. And I saw one of the funniest comments. They were like, "Isn't WWE Experience a thing? Like, isn't that a real thing?" And they said, "I'm fairly confident that Vince has no fucking clue that show even exists at all."
Probably not. But yeah, I mean, but all in all, like that, I am very I'm optimistic, but cautiously optimistic. Like, even if they came as the War Raiders, I would still be very cautious, just because I'm paranoid without because they've ruined so many wrestlers that I've really liked. It's kind of jaded me over the last few years, and but you can't live life just being paranoid. Everything's gonna get screwed up. You gotta just take it.
I think that these guys have the quote unquote experience. Truly, they've been grinding for so long. Some of these guys come up so fast, and they're kids by the time they make it. And then you look at Hanson and Rowe, and they've been just doing it for so long, and they've been around. These wrestlers have known mankind. I mean, Mick Foley, the legend, is over here going to bat saying these guys deserve this, and I'm just happy for these two individuals. Like, he means it. That's that stuff right there. To me, means that they have what it takes to push through, even if Vince tries to massacre them. The only thing that they could do, I think, that would stop them from being able to overcome any negativity is if Vince forces them to do something stupid, like wear the Berzerker outfit or something. And it kind of scares me because they had that freaking guy, the guy who played the Berzerker character, on WrestleMania on a podium talking like an announcer. So. Yeah, well, I saw that after the fact, and I was like, "Is that the Berzerker?" And it was the guy. He worked there. He did announcing, but during the WrestleMania weekend. So what I'm gonna do, Jason, is I'm gonna slice this up and make this its own episode. So after you're off, I'll do a different introduction, and and I'm gonna put this. Joe and I are gonna record one tomorrow, so I'll pump this episode up in that one, and I'll say, we have a special, Friday episode or something for, because I know Joe doesn't like our episodes going 2 hours. There's just so much to talk about in this, and I can't shut up. So, you double whammy.
I got a lot to say. You got a lot you want to say. So it's all just going to go on and on. So it's just how it is, man.
Oh, man, I don't mind. We could jump into so many different topics right now, but I know you got to go. The next thing we got to do is we got to play some Apex Legends. And
yeah, well, okay.
Did you get a chance yet?
I'm big into Division 2 and playing, and as sad as it sounds to you probably, but I got back into Fallout 76, so which sounds stupid, but I love the Fallout universe so much, and I just never gave it a proper chance, and I want to at least get to a few locations in the game that I've gone, because it takes place in West Virginia, and I've actually been to a few, hiking a few of these locations, and I want to go see them in the game. It sounds stupid, but
no,
that's the same reason I like the Division 2, because I like, I recognize
that makes sense.
I
need to go back and finish Fallout 4 because it took place in Boston, and I'm from up that way.
Yeah.
So,
hell yeah, shit. Fallout 4 is a great game.
Yeah, no, I got pretty far. I just I think something happened where my mech couldn't move, and I needed to go farm some material, and I was like, yeah, I'm not doing this. And I never picked the game back up. I was like bored
Well,
in one
the
day.
thing with Bethesda games too is that you got to play them in a way to where you're not cheesing them, because like all the Elder Scrolls games and all the Fallout games, other than the first two, which were interplay, it's so easy to just like you can just look up like some crazy build and these exploits and all that, just basically just go god mode on everything. And so I like to play
maybe
them
I'll do
basically
that
on-
to beat Fallout 4, because one of the things I'm going to start doing with the podcast and the channel and the YouTube and all that is doing some Twitch streams. And if I can somehow manage to get an audience on some of these backlog games, I want the audience to help me beat these games as fast as possible, because I have too many to enjoy the ride. You know what I mean? Like some of them I want people to tell me the fastest way to beat them and cut through these games like butter. And others I'll savor and I'll enjoy. Like God of War 3, I'm not going to rush through that. Or not God of War 3, God of War, the newest one, whatever it is.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, if you enjoy, like the way I say it is, if you actually enjoy the universe, like the actual, like if you actually like how I feel about Fallout, and like just like I've always loved Fallout from the original game, so I'm obviously gonna take my time and save.
But with Fallout, I could take 200 hours to play that game, or if I can beat it in 10, let's beat it in 10.
Yeah, but then it's. My argument to that would be, okay, you put in the 10 hours, but if you're doing it for Twitch streams, it's a little bit different. I'd be like,
yeah, I'm gonna be doing it.
Beat it. Why are you even playing it at all? It's like I mean, that's kind of how I'm doing my backlog. I'm just gonna let some games just fall out, just flush them down the toilet, because I just like it. I'm at kind of at the point in my life where I'm only gonna play games I actually know I'm gonna enjoy. So
yeah, and mine's a little different just because of my circumstance in that. Now I'm done the move. I know I have one more surgery on my arm. I won't be able to play for a little bit. But in reality, I have a couple hours a day that I didn't really have before with no interruption other than my kids. So I want to fill it with, I have had these games since, some of them for 4 or 5 years. They're on my backlog for that long. And they're still good enough to go back and play and beat. So I want to do it. But I also love the grab-and-go genres. I love the battle royales. I'm not going to stop playing Fortnite and Call of Duty and Battlefields and all those. And then Borderlands just came out, and Joe got me to buy that. And, I jumped into that, and I forgot how awesome that game is. Borderlands 1. I haven't played it in 10 years, Jason.
Are you playing on PlayStation 4?
Yeah. And guess what?
Oh.
I know where the loot boxes are. Like, my brain somehow has memorized that fucking game. And I haven't played it in 10 years, but every mission I remember, like, oh, the bad guy's around that corner over there, and he has like a long neck with blood coming out his eyeball. Like, oh, yep, there he is. It's like, wow, I never replay games, so
yeah,
I don't know how, but
yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. It's the same way with me with Resident Evil.
Yeah, but it's nostalgic, right? It's nostalgic. You're enjoying it.
And then it's all another thing I get into. Like my favorite game of all time is Silent Hill 2, and I played through that once when I was right when it first came out. Then I played through the PS3 port of it. So I forget when it was last year. And I remembered pretty much every single puzzle, pretty much where everything was in that game. I only played it once, and that's just the impression that the game left.
Yeah, and I think it's a good thing. Joe's always talking up Borderlands, and we can't wait for Borderlands 3. And I got Borderlands 2 to play on the VR, which I plan on doing. It got aim support. No, which is probably why I haven't really played it. I played the first. I was having some. Yeah, to be honest, long story short, my arm problems have been going on for quite some time now, since early January, and they were causing some really weird fatigue. I can't sleep at night very good, so I'm getting between 2 to 5 hours of sleep. And it's a little bit better now that the surgery's over, but for a couple of weeks it's just uncomfortable to sleep because of the surgery. So, yeah, I mean, it's very hard to wear a VR headset when you are abnormally tired. Not just like, ooh, I'm tired, it's late, but I'm talking like the kind of tired where you have that migraine in the center back of your head that just doesn't go away unless you hold your head at an angle or something. Just like...
No, I know exactly what you mean. I mean,
you put that headset on and it's it's awkward. It's just an awkward feeling. It may not be sickness or whatever, but Joe and I get into this a bit because he's afraid to go back into VR. And I say, no, don't be afraid. You got to go back into it because the games that are happening now are different. They're not giving most people motion sickness. The first couple that came out, you can't go as a baseline. You have to kind of look at some. A lot of the games don't have motion sickness anymore because they're sit-down or rail shooters. The developers are learning how to do it to avoid it, and they're putting blinders on and stuff. To be honest, I don't get into the VR as much as I want, but when I do, I'm going to tear through that backlog too, because these games are 2, 4, 6 hour experiences, and I plan on. Well, I went through one of them, the Thor experience. That's what I was leading up to. Is I know you played some No Man's Sky. Joe and I played No Man's Sky like crazy.
Told you that years ago. I said if they ever release this game in VR, that's going to be the end of my life. That's probably going to be.
Well, Jason, early indications are that this is what we've all dreamed of. Like, people are saying it's unbelievable. And then, speaking of dreams, today, I guess I haven't gone in yet, but they're saying today you can go buy the early access creator bundle for $30. And if you do that today, when the game launches, you'll have access to the full game, which will most likely be $60. So they're trying to watch
some video,
go watch it. There's plenty of video because it had an early access beta, and I was in it, and it was pretty amazing. Now, I didn't get in and tinker. I didn't have the time, and I don't imagine I will even when the game comes out. But I've been getting a lot into music, to be honest. I'm not a very good musician, but I've been trying to understand electronic type music a little bit more. I got a cool thing called the Launchpad, and I've been since I've been doing the podcast, I've been learning a lot about sound. I wouldn't say music, but sound. And so it's something I want to dip into. And the music creation tools in that game are incredible. And it's on par with some of the most amazing things that people have access to that are major DJs. So if you get a chance, go to YouTube, just go to YouTube and search Dreams Music Creation, and you'll see some of the stuff. Every sample that you create gets put into the game, and they've mastered the categorization. And so, if you want to make a popping sound with your lips, you can do that. Record it with the PlayStation microphone or whatever, and then that sound is now in the game, and anybody can use that sound, and it gets categorized.
I'll go check it out. Yeah,
and then you can tweak it, slow it down, you can speed it up. It's really just some of the videos I saw with these people on the fly. If you were to mimic what they did, you could do something pretty amazing in 15 minutes. Amazing. Not just cool, but if you just replicated what they did, you could do it yourself, and then you can tweak that and make it even cooler. So you could make theme songs to your podcast, or make a song music that you like. You could mix stuff. It's amazing, and that's just one tiny piece. The level creation is off the charts. I played this one game where it was made in a day or two, and you're just driving a car through different environments, and you can crash, and when you crash, and you start over, whatever. Very simple game, but it was just visually really cool, really, really awesome. And it had 7 levels. Yeah, it's worth it to check out.
I'm gonna look at that right here before I get some Fallout right now, actually. So
nice. But, well, I don't want to hold you off anymore. We've talked for an hour longer than I told you we would. That's usually what happens with me, and you get me started. I don't let you go. I don't let you go.
Yeah, let me. We'll maybe get some Borderlands in. I was gonna get that, and I was looking for an excuse to buy it.
Oh, if you buy Borderlands, me, you, and Joe, no doubt, will be playing that game. Even if it's a little here, a little there. I jumped into it for the last 2 days, and I start itching. I want to play it. It's nostalgic, but it's also remastered. It's a hell of a game. It's a hell of a game, and it's gearing us up for, pick up Borderlands 2 VR if you can, and after I beat Borderlands 1, I'm going to play through that, Borderlands 2, and then Borderlands 3 September.
The Borderlands 3 sequel, or whatever it's called.
Yeah, Joe, I want to play those too. I never played those, but I've beaten 1 and 2, so.
All right. Well, yeah, I'll set that. I'll go buy that before I go to bed and set the download. Yeah, I'll be on there tomorrow.
Hey, fantastic. Jason, as always, it is Absolutely a pleasure to talk to you. I wish we could get together more often in person. Maybe we'll make that happen sometime this summer. But with that being
I'm
said,
looking to go to Disney World next, maybe not this year, but next year. Oh yeah, next year for sure.
nice.
'Cause,
Well,
we got
you know,
a lot of money saved up in our vacation travel fund, so
Perfect.
start using.
well, we'll be there with you. We got season passes, so the kids would
Yeah,
love to get together.
Freaking Florida residents, you
Hey,
guys.
there's
But,
always room for more if you ever want to move down here. So.
I know Whitney's thinking Colorado, but I've been as the years go on, I start to appreciate the warmer climates a
Hey,
bit more.
You
So.
let Whitney know that Crystal loves her, okay? And Crystal misses
All
Whitney.
right, well,
She really does. She misses her group, and I know that
no, Whitney feels the same way. She
Yeah.
makes some kind of mention of that at least once a week. So.
Crystal too. So it'd be great, but maybe we'll get up that way too this summer if we can, if I can get some time. But all that being said, man, love to have you. I'm sure Joe wouldn't mind you joining us on the podcast whenever you want as well. I'll let you know when we do have it. And
Okay. Like I said, I'm free pretty much any time now because I don't raid and I just game whenever the hell I want now. So
you hear that, folks? If you start playing World of Warcraft, you're gonna be on the hook for raids and all that. So stick with some of these other games.
Nah, I'm done with that shit. I hate having my schedule dictated by other people. Like, well, if it's with like real life friends, I don't mind, but it's like freaking people just random. I don't know. Just it's.
I'm
I
with
just
you.
can't do that.
So I'm with you on that. And as we get older, man, we don't have time for all that. But if you do have time, I want you all to go to our Twitter and our Instagram. We're nearing the 1,000 mark. By the time you listen to this, we might be up and over it. At the time of this recording, 960 something Twitter followers. We need 1,000. I need 40 more. That's it. And just to break that threshold, that's a really big number to beat. We've been pushing really hard. And on Instagram, which I just started really pushing this week, we're up over 900, around 900 right now. So you can hit us at the Backlog Pod. That's the @ symbol, the Backlog Pod, at the Backlog Pod on both Twitter and Instagram. As always, you can hit our website, thebacklogexposed.com, and our YouTube channel. If you go to our website, click the link to our YouTube channel. Please click subscribe. We have about 15 to 20 subscribers there. We just started growing that yesterday. I'm trying to get 100 so I can give you a better link to go to, youtube.com/thebacklogpod or something like that. You can't designate a custom channel link until you have 100 followers on YouTube. So if you could help us out, jump over there. Just go to our website, thebacklogexposed.com, click the YouTube link up top, click subscribe, and you'll make us very happy people. Always feel free to share, rate, subscribe, all that stuff to all of our different social media. And we really appreciate the growth and the attention that you guys have all given us. It's making this worthwhile and a lot of fun for us to do. Jason, love talking to you, man. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Me too. I'll hit you up tomorrow.
Sounds good. We'll be playing some Borderlands.
Yep.
All right, everybody.
Oh yeah, I can't wait to scratch that nostalgia itch.
I know, man. Joe's gonna be happy. He's gonna be happy to hear it. So, all right, man. That's it. We're wrapping up. Thank you, everybody.